I was a short distance offshore from one of America's most vital defense installations. A plant making highly explosive rocket fuel. I had to move with great caution. A patrol boat was in the vicinity. On it were factory guards, members of the plant's security staff. They had the legal right to shoot to kill. I knew they would. I didn't intend to give them the chance. My mission was sabotage. The circumstances that had made me a saboteur still seemed weird and strange to me. Yet here I was. Sabotage was my job, and I intended to do my job. With a periscope, I could safely check the movements of the patrol boat, too, and give it plenty of room. The way I was working seemed safe enough to me. My underwater camera combined a telephoto lens with the periscope attachment. I started by getting some very good offshore views of the most secret building in the entire plant. I made many other revealing photos of the plant and its working activities. Unfortunately, I became too interested in my work. I was neglecting the patrol boat. I was in trouble. I had to drop the camera and swim for my life. The first shots would be warning shots to make me come to the surface. I might still be able to escape. The area where they had trapped me was fairly shallow, too shallow, and the water was uncomfortably clear. The water was slowing the bullets down, but they were much too close. These were no longer warning shots. These bullets meant business. So up I went, hands first.
Come aboard! Over there. Okay, mister, what were you doing down there?
Scuba diving? No law against that. There is against shooting at someone, though.
How long you been down there?
Oh, about half an hour.
Where'd you come from?
Just offshore.
You know what that is over there?
No, but I couldn't care less. Mind if I go?
That island is out of bounds, off limits to anybody.
Well, I didn't see any signs down there where I was.
That's very funny. So you're a skin diver, huh? That just happened to wander into this area.
That's right.
What's your name?
Perdway. Jim Perdway.
Mr. Perdway, what was that little device that you were using?
Device? What device?
Never mind. Packy, take us back to where we first saw him. Now, Mr. Perdway, let's get out of that gear.
Pretty clever device you've got here, Mr. What'd you say your name was?
Perdway.
Perdway. Where'd you get this?
Had it made.
Pretty useful, too.
I don't know how useful it is. I have fun with it. But I got news for you. This isn't any fun. And when I get a hold of my lawyer, you and your boys and this company are going to be in for a king-size lawsuit.
Now, don't get yourself worked up, Mr. Padway.
Perdway. And I am worked up. Plenty. I've been shot at, handcuffed, illegally detained, and third degreed. When all I was doing was diving in waters that I had no way of knowing was a restricted area.
And also because you took some pictures in that restricted area.
I didn't know it was restricted.
But we'll find that out when we get your film back from the darkroom. All right, fellas, you better get back to the patrol boat.
Sure you don't need us here?
No, I can handle it. Thank you. You did a fine job, both.
Thanks.
You put on a good act, Mike.
I even surprised myself. Your boys weren't acting, though. They were playing for real. They're sure on their toes.
Well, good. That's what I'm paying you to find out. Sorry you have to work so hard for your money.
Yeah, so am I. Hey, maybe we better let him in on it, huh?
No, keeping everyone out but you and me is the only way to get a legitimate check on our security on the seaward side of this plant. Now, what else did you see besides the patrol boat?
Plenty. I took some pictures that'll make your hair stand on end. And if I can do it, somebody else can. I don't mean that the fellas aren't doing a good job of patrolling, but I think maybe you might need another patrol boat.
No, we'll put one on. You work close to shore all the way?
Yeah, right in through here.
What about the intake pipe? This worries me a little.
No, I didn't get that far. Pretty rough through there, you know. And it's a long way out. Rough water.
Let's hope that guarantees its safety.
Well, let's find out for sure, though, huh? The intake pipe was the plant's most sensitive underwater point. The mouth of the pipe lay a long way offshore and very deep. A dozen men had lost their lives forcing that water tunnel through the ocean bottom. The whole area was very dangerous and seemed almost impossible to reach without a boat. It was the last place that anybody would expect a saboteur. I paused to take a bearing. The farther I went, the more I realized that the intake pipe was much too far and too deep to be within anybody's reach. But I was determined to get there if I could. The visibility was getting poorer. I was just about to turn back, and then I spotted something that could be my answer. The hulk of a sunken freighter. The idea occurred to me that it would be an ideal halfway point. I could store some spare air tanks in it and use it like a way station. From here, the mouth of the intake pipe would be within easy reach. But there were air tanks already there, and they weren't mine. Someone else was there ahead of me with the same idea. I heard someone land on the deck above me. I got out of sight, and none too soon. I waited while he changed his tanks. I wanted to know what his next move would be. I let him get well ahead so that I could follow him without being noticed. There was no mistaking the direction. Whoever he was heading for that intake pipe. I got there a few minutes behind him. 2 men were in front of that pipe, cutting a hole in the screen. My first thought was that they were going to enter the pipe. This would give me an opportunity to trap them both. Then suddenly I recognized what one of them was holding. It was a miniature torpedo. I started toward them, but it was too late to stop them. The torpedo was in the pipe, racing on its way into the rocket fuel plant where just one explosion would turn everything for miles around it into a blazing inferno. It had been my job to stop them, and I had failed. But if there was to be any chance left, I had to bring those 2 men to the surface, alive. I used a trick that I had learned as a Navy frogman. I choked him with a rubber sling and my spear gun. It cut his air down to a minimum, leaving him helpless until I could return to deal with him. The second man was tougher, but finally I turned off his air valve. He had only one way to go, up. Within 5 minutes, they were both on the deck of the patrol boat, in custody. And I was in custody, too, until Madden identified me.
Yes, Mr. Madden, I understand. Yes, sir, he can help with the interrogation. Yes, sir, I'll tell him that. Over. They're evacuating the plant at once.
Good. What do you say about reversing the flow in the intake pipe?
Well, it can be done, but it'll take time because the engineers have to disconnect and reconnect the pumps. Now, come on, you two, talk.
How much time before that torpedo goes off?
Come on, talk! Don't you realize if that plant goes up, half the island goes with it? You want to wind up in the gas chamber?
Gas chamber? Well, wait a minute. I was just a helper.
That torpedo had a delayed fuse. You had to allow yourselves time to get clear. Now, how much time?
Come on, talk!
All right. We said it.
Get out of there. Let him go. Come on. Get out. Come on, get out of there. Now you talk.
Okay, we said it. We left ourselves an hour.
It gives me about 45 minutes.
Where are you going?
Into that tunnel.
Are you kidding?
No, there's still a chance. I've got to take it. I'll need a spare tank. I'm going to use yours.
How far in are you going?
As far as I can get. I placed the spare air tanks in front of the tube, in case that I was down to my last gasps of air by the time I got back. If I got back. Being alone in that dark, weird pipe gave me a strange feeling. I felt an almost irresistible urge to turn and go back, where it was safe. I knew that I couldn't. I pushed along, hoping that the torpedo had stopped short or had been fouled within the tube in some way. I knew that far over my head, the plant was being evacuated, and a large area around it. Thousands of people at that moment were fleeing in terror of the worst possible explosion in their memory. I had to find that torpedo. I was deep into the pipe. In front of me was a ring of measuring gauges. The torpedo had dented one of the gauges and continued on, but it could have been damaged or deflected. I started through too quickly. Suddenly, I couldn't move. My air hose had caught on one of the measuring devices. I couldn't twist too far to reach it without ripping it. I was trapped. I tried not to panic. If I could slip the tanks off, I might free the air hose. But I had to move with infinite care. A torn air hose here could only mean certain death. And not only for me. It slipped free, with the air hose still intact. But my air supply was greatly reduced. My valve was damaged. My life depended on whether I could repair it. I'd lost precious time and air. Everything seemed to be working against me. My body ached. My lungs ached. I wondered whether this was really pipe or an endless coffin. I knew that I was feeling the effects of the pressure. My thoughts didn't seem to coordinate. The turn in the tube indicated that I was now under the plant itself. It should have alerted me to something else, but I was too groggy to notice. It was my air tank that hit the little propeller. It didn't register at first, but the metallic sound woke me out of my numbness. I reached up. I had been told how to disarm it. I knew that even disarmed, it could still be dangerously sensitive and tricky. Determined not to drop it or bump it. But there was something else that worried me even more, that I didn't have the strength left to make the long trip back or the air to sustain me. I was trying to use only the very minimum of air. I was dazed and bone-weary. My muscles were still moving me forward, but I hardly knew how. The torpedo was getting heavier and heavier. My arm ached from gripping it, and almost slipped. Somehow it didn't seem to matter. The pipe seemed to be closing in on me. I felt as though I was held in a water-filled straitjacket. After a while, the last strength seemed to have gone out of my legs. I realized dimly that I had practically stopped moving. I thought, what a strange place to die. I thought I was done for. But I made one last effort to shake out of it. It was instinct for survival, nothing else. Then I saw light ahead. I raced forward to get my tank of air. I released the torpedo. It didn't explode. No breath ever felt better. I looked up. The patrol boat was still circling and waiting. When it was firing bullets at me, I never thought that a day would come when that boat would be such a welcome sight. But this was the day. This was the day. I'll be back next week at the same time with another sea hunt story. Plan to be with us again, huh?